On January 6, 2026, something fascinating happened in Beijing, China. South Korea's president was sitting with China's president. Officially, they were talking about security tensions with North Korea. But something interesting slipped into the conversation: K-pop and cultural exchange. Think about that for a second. Two of Asia's biggest powers sitting in a room, and pop music becomes part of diplomacy. That alone tells you how powerful culture has become. Because if you think about it, some 10 years ago, if someone in Delhi said, "Let's eat Korean food," people might have thought you meant that tiny bibimbap stall near some embassy. But today, walk down any major street in Delhi or Bengaluru or Mumbai and you see multiple Korean restaurants, from BBQ joints to kimchi bars to K-food fusion cafes and bubble tea spots. Korean restaurants in Delhi have gone from a handful to dozens in less than 10 years. And here's a number that really tells the story. The Times of India reports that the Korean noodle market in India jumped from roughly 20 million rupees in 2021 to more than 650 million rupees in just 2 years. That's not a trend, that's a cultural shift. And it's not just food. Recently, a K-pop concert in India pulled in tens of thousands of people. People traveled overnight, fans screamed lyrics in Korean, even when they couldn't speak fluently. Which brings me to this crazy fact. More Indians are learning Korean today than ever before, often choosing it over French and German. Not for exams, not for jobs, but because of the love for the culture. And that's soft power. And remember, South Korea is a new country. It became independent in 1945, just 2 years before India. It's roughly the size of Bihar, with a population lesser than Uttar Pradesh. And one has to remember, Korea had a brutal war after its independence and a permanently hostile neighbor, North Korea. Very few natural resources, and they import most of their food. After the Korean War, South Korea was poor, really poor. In the 1960s, South Korea's per capita income was comparable to some of the poorest countries in the world. And yet today, they are one of the world's top exporters. Global leaders in electronics, automobiles, shipbuilding, cultural export worth billions of dollars annually. A brand identity so strong that just adding K sells. But how? Because they decided very early that culture is not time pass. Culture is power. And this didn't just happen because Koreans worked the hardest, harder than everyone else, but it happened because the state, society, and storytellers were all aligned. So now that you know, Korean pop culture is being discussed in presidential meetings in Beijing, let's pause and ask, how did a country that didn't even exist 80 years ago end up exporting emotions at a geopolitical scale? Because this isn't just about dramas or boy bands. This is about narrative. This is about soft power. So what is soft power? Soft power is when people like you, people choose you, but because they enjoy your stories, they enjoy your food, they enjoy your music, they enjoy your culture, your values. And in the context of South Korea, they didn't just stumble upon soft power, they engineered it. And here's the insight most people miss. Korea didn't just first ask, what should we do so that we can go viral? They asked, who do we want to be seen as? Then they reverse engineered everything: education policy, creative funding, export strategy, cultural diplomacy, entertainment was treated as infrastructure. Which brings us to the real magic question. Why are Korean dramas, music, food, fashion, beauty suddenly part of everyday global conversation, and especially here in India? So let's talk human brains for a second. Modern audiences are overstimulated, emotionally exhausted, continuously anxious. Most global content today mirrors this type of chaos. And what does K-drama do? Just the opposite. They slow you down. They are closer to oral storytelling traditions, the kind India once excelled at. They don't mock sincerity, they protect it. No constant sexualization, no shock value intimacy, no casual cruelty disguised as realism. You can watch them with your parents, with your children, with your grandparents, with your neighbors. That alone expands the audience exponentially. Around 2019, Netflix executives publicly admitted something surprising. They said Korean shows were not just doing well in Asia, they were being watched in Latin America, the Middle East, Europe, Africa, and India. So by 2021, shows like Crash Landing on You and Squid Games were trending in countries that had no historical connection to Korea. And Netflix later revealed that Korean content was among the most rewatched. Viewers were more likely to finish full seasons. Subtitles were not a barrier. And mind you, that's huge. People usually say, language is a barrier. Clearly it isn't, if the story is good. And one has to talk about the men in K-dramas. Every civilization exports idealized masculinity through stories. Korean storytelling exported a version of masculinity that many societies were quietly craving. The kind of men shown in K-dramas are emotionally available, very good looking, respectful to women, chivalrous, thoughtful, vulnerable without being weak, kind, gentle, caring but not dominating. So for many women around the world, this felt like a dream come true. It was so refreshing. There was a time when Bollywood played a role very similar to what K-dramas play today. From the 1950s through to the early 2000s, Bollywood didn't just export movies, it exported a romantic imagination. Indian cinema became famous for portraying a kind of love that many women across the world deeply craved. Emotional, poetic, patient, and deeply respectful. The male leads one love through their devotion, their vulnerability, their music and sacrifice. Romance unfolded slowly through songs, through glances, through letters, through long journeys and sometimes moral dilemmas. Love was not rushed, it was earned. This form of romance traveled far beyond India. In Afghanistan for decades, Bollywood films were amongst the most watched foreign movies, even during periods when music and cinema were officially banned. Hindi songs were memorized, actors became household names, and Indian films shaped ideas of love, family, and aspiration across generations. Similar patterns were seen in parts of the Middle East, Central Asia, Eastern Europe, Africa, and the former Soviet Union, where Bollywood stars enjoyed a sort of fame which was comparable to global icons. By the 1970s and 80s, Indian films were being screened in over 70 countries. And by the 90s, Bollywood had one of the largest international viewership in the world, especially among women. Actors became symbols not just of attraction but of emotional safety, moral strength, and romantic idealism. And I felt this personally sitting with my Afghan friends and European friends and African friends, and realizing that even when we didn't share a language, we shared the same Bollywood song, the same movie scene, the same memories of love and longing. For a few moments, geography just disappeared and Bollywood quietly did what diplomacy often couldn't. That is, turn strangers from Afghanistan, Europe, Africa into people who feel like old friends. In many ways, Bollywood once held a powerful soft power advantage. It made India feel emotionally rich, culturally deep, and romantically aspirational. Long before the term soft power became popular in global policy circles. So, what changed? It wasn't the cinema. It was the loss of a clear romantic and cultural narrative. And today, in a strange full circle, that kind of romance Bollywood once mastered, the gentle, expressive, emotionally intelligent kind, is now being reintroduced to global audiences through Korean dramas. So now, Korea isn't just a country, it's a feeling, a place associated with safety, romance, and respect. And that's not accidental, that's storytelling, it's cultural signaling. When millions of women associate Korea with emotional safety, you know what that translates into? It translates into tourism, immigration interest, language learning, cross-cultural marriages, positive bias in global perception. That's soft power you can't buy with ads. And do you know, there's a small but growing number of Indian women marrying Korean men. One woman said in an interview, "Watching Korean shows changed what I thought relationships could feel like. Not perfect, just kind." And think about that. A TV show quietly changing relationship expectations across borders. And I think that's powerful. So, why does Korean food look so comforting on screen? Why do Korean cafes look so cozy? Why do cities feel so walkable and calm and beautiful? Because Korea sells a way of life, not just products. So, when you watch a drama, you crave the food. You eat the food, you want to visit the country. You visit the country, you want to learn the language. And that's a perfect loop. K-Beauty said, take care of yourself. Healthy skin, daily routine, science-packed products. Now compare that with India. India already has had moments like this. Foreigners learning Hindi from films, yoga travelers settling in small towns, food vloggers falling in love with Indian street foods. And we have Ayurveda, thousands of years old. But globally, we haven't packaged or explained it properly. Korea took skincare and turned it into a global habit. And India? India often treats its own knowledge either as superstition or as something old-fashioned. And that's not because we lack quality, it's because we lack storytelling. But South Korea has its own challenges. South Korea pays a price for its success, just like any other country. The students in South Korea study brutally long hours, work culture is intense, mental health struggles are real, inequality exists. So, what can India learn from this South Korean story? India should not copy Korea, that would be foolish. But to understand this, our culture needs government support. Stories need direction. Soft power comes from calm consistency. India already has everything, stories older than most civilizations, cultural depth that no algorithm can invent. What we need is intentional storytelling, calm confidence. So, South Korea didn't become powerful by shouting, "Look how great we are." They simply showed their lives, their stories, their people so beautifully. And the world said, "Tell us more, show us more. We like you." And that is soft power. And if a small country with a few natural resources can do this in just 80 years, Imagine what India could do if India could choose to tell its story calmly, clearly, and confidently. Thank you for watching. Namaste.